Okay, now let's figure out which of us does the recording. One,
One,
two,
two,
three.
three.
Okay. Welcome to the Professionally Evil Perspective, Episode 6. I'm Kevin Johnson.
And I'm Nathan Sweeney.
And today we're going to talk about random songs from the 80s.
Ooh, I like that.
I don't remember when 8675309 came out. That was the 80s, wasn't it?
Oh, it has to be. Yeah, I don't remember
Yeah.
for sure exactly either. I saw I don't know if the website's still out there. At some point when voice over IP stuff was first becoming big, somebody set up a SIP line and called every possible area code. They called 8675309, and there was this long website with basically a spreadsheet, and it showed who answered, whether it was a person or not.
Yeah.
I think like half of them were answering machines that said, hey, this is
not Jenny.
Jenny, yeah, or it was Jenny, right? I went blank for a second. Anyway,
yeah.
No, today I think we're going to talk about MFA, or in particular SMS as used for MFA, because I know you're a huge fan of everything should use SMS everywhere, and it's the only viable.
These authenticator apps, they're just way too complex. These QR codes, the lines and squares are just confusing. We shouldn't have
all the tokens.
No, I'm not a huge fan of SMS. What I am is a huge fan of yelling at the people who randomly yell on Twitter that SMS two-factor is evil and needs to be removed from the face of the earth forever, period.
I may have been that person.
You may have been.
It drives me crazy how many people just say SMS is good enough, we should use it for everything, or say SMS is horrible, it's the end of the world, we can't do it.
Here's my point to what you just said. I think both of us agree that when people do absolutes for this crap is when it irritates the piss out of us, right?
That's fair.
When people say SMS is evil, that irritates us. When people say SMS two-factor is good enough and we don't need to bother with anything else, and that's evil too, right?
I think you just described most of Twitter.
Yeah, I did. So for the people who don't know, SMS as a two-factor authentication, or MFA, multi-factor authentication, or 3FA, my new one that I just created.
Multi-step authentication is another. That's a, instead of two-factor, they use two-step. A lot of banks do that, where it's too complicated to do another factor, but we'll use multiple steps, and then we'll have some additional controls to identify potential fraud in that.
Yeah. And the idea is that you log in and you're going to get an SMS message that has a code that you enter in, and that's your two-factor.
And by SMS, we're talking about texting, right? We get a text message on your phone, which in theory is to prove you have the phone, right? If I get you an SMS message, you've got the phone. What's the problem with that? In theory, yeah. So where are the weaknesses?
Well, there's lots of weaknesses, obviously. The first one that I hear all the time is, what do they call it now? SIM jacking, because they have come up with a new name, right? If I convince Verizon to issue your SIM to me, I'll get the SMS, right? And it's happened. Like, let's be very clear. That is something that has absolutely happened. There are systems that has happened.
Well, I want to expand on that a little bit before you go on, because I think saying it has happened is not fair to the scale. Like, I think it's more accurate to say that has happened to almost every provider, especially outside the U.S. I mean, there's
hundreds. You mean every cell phone provider?
Cell phone provider. That's what I mean. Yeah. Absolutely. But even within the U.S., I know T-Mobile has had several big problems. Verizon's been hit. AT&T's had issues.
Google Fi has not.
Google Fi, I think, is absolutely
100% rock solid, secure, no issue, and that's mainly because they just bought Mandia. But
I'll be putting my Google Fi, code in the
discount referral code.
Yeah, referral code in the meeting notes.
And to be very clear for the people who are then fact checking Nathan and I right now, I have no idea if Google Fi has been hit with this. I only said it because I thought it'd be funny.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right that it's happened a lot. I will say though, and this goes back to you and I've talked about this before. This goes back to do we understand risk well enough, right? Do we understand, can we measure risk correctly? Because while yes, every provider practically, if not all providers, have been hit with this type of social engineering, how widespread is the attack against the authentication? And I think that the implication given by every provider has been hit, it makes an implication that it's happened to lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of people and lots of accounts. And I don't think those two are correct. One, I don't think we have good numbers of how many people have had this attack happen to them. Because quite often when it happens, the user, the victim, has no easy way to determine that that is what happened.
That's what caused it, right?
Yeah. So that's a problem with measuring this. But I think this is a very targeted type of attack. I want access, like for example, all of the NFT and crypto bros, they are being targeted for stuff like this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's happened a lot with people that have, either their cryptocurrency in an exchange that, using MFA, and especially outside the US, that's happened a lot. I know there's been at least two incidents with organizations in the US where like support staff for the cell phone providers were basically bribed to give that information to an attacker who was using it for something like that.
Which, while that is a social engineering attack, it's not the type of social engineering attack we tend to think of.
Yeah. My problem with that is, or my problem with what you're saying is that those attacks are only used in targeted situations.
Nope, not what I said. I can see you taking what I said to mean that, but that's not what I meant.
Okay, but my concern, because I hear a lot of people say that, right? Like that is a common thing. It's like, well, it's used in this rare, uncommon, really targeted thing. But the problem is people use MFA to protect things that are sensitive. Yep. And so if a targeted attacker is coming after you, that's absolutely a vector they may use if that's in their wheelhouse.
Well, and let's make it even worse, right? In a lot of cases, your MFA supports SMS, even though you've turned on Authenticator.
Oh, right? Yeah, that's a good point.
So like, I'm gonna say that I've not recently set up a Google account, so I don't know that this is still the way to do it. But as of the last time I set up a Google account, you go into Google, you sign up for an account, here's my username, here's my password, and I want two-factor, and it asks you for a phone number. You give it a phone number, it texts you a number, and then after you've done all that, it allows you to turn on the authenticator. But by default, it does not then remove the SMS option. Right. So even though I have Authy on my phone, I have that 6-digit rotating number thingamabobby, right? That's not required. You can still use SMS. And I found this out, luckily for me. I'll admit I screwed up, right? When I created one of my accounts, I never turned off SMS authentication. I had a phone die. I wasn't using Authy yet, and it was back before Google Authenticator supported, backing up the seeds. Yeah. Right. So to get to my personal Gmail account, I'm like, oh my God, I don't know how to turn off two-factor of this. I'm gonna have to go through this whole thing, and oh man. So I went to I lost my device, blah blah blah, link. And it's like, oh, we'll text you a code. And I'm thinking, oh, this isn't gonna work. Obviously I turned that off. But I hadn't. Yeah. So I got a text message. I logged in. I was able to fix everything. So it was good for me.
Right.
But here I am. I'd like to believe I'm a slightly more aware subject when it comes to security. And on my personal Gmail account, I had left SMS turned on. Yeah. Even though every time I logged in, I used the code, right?
So that's a great point. I mean, on one hand, I trust Google a little bit more. I know we kind of sound like Google fanboys a little bit, but no, they do a much better job of managing authentication methods and detecting fraud on that kind of stuff. I regularly get messages of, hey, this looks suspicious. Are you sure you're the person that did this? And they always send it in an out of band message some other way. And so in a situation like that, I trust them a little bit more than say like my bank, who uses SMS and doesn't appear to have any of that kind of fraud stuff, because I rarely get those messages.
Yeah.
But to your point, as a skeptical, as a cautious security person, you still screwed up.
Yeah.
And that's my concern, is that when we give people default settings, like the average person is not going to go through the extra steps to make it more secure or whatnot. So it pisses me off when so many banks, so many, just financial institutions in general, but even like Marriott's a great example. I use them for my hotel. I'm just blasting people out here. Please don't take away my status. But you know what I mean? Like their authentication sucks anyways. Half the time I can't get logged in. But like they use SMS as a primary factor or email, right? Like I don't have any other option. Yeah. That drives me crazy that there's no other options out there. Or I'm sorry, there's no other options that are being offered. So let's talk about what is the problem with just doing away with SMS? Because that's a lot of people promote that SMS is dead. Yeah. SMS should never be used. And there's other issues with it other than just the SIM jacking. I mean, we jumped on that. One of my concerns, because I use Google Fi, I get all of my phone calls and my text messages on my computer.
Yep. Which means malware on your computer has access. It's no longer band communication.
2FA. Yep. Yeah, exactly. So that drives me crazy, but it's convenient because now when they send me a text message, I just copy and paste from this window into this window and I'm done. Right.
Yeah.
Please don't compromise my computer and do that for me.
Too late. Already did it.
Just put the disclaimer
I think one of the biggest problems with saying get rid of SMS completely is a lack of understanding of who your audience is. And the reason I say that is many of the systems, I had this conversation with an insurance provider, a health insurance provider, that was like, we've been pushing to get rid of SMS and we just can't get the business to accept it. And I pointed out to them that, and I want to be very clear, we're quoting research from the Pew Research Institute. I have many times spoken out against them, but according to their February, from January 25th to February 8th, 2021, they did respondents, like a survey, and they found that on average, if I'm doing the math right, about 11% of the world's population, I'm sorry, the US population, because the number goes up when you include the entire world.
Yeah.
But about 11% of the population that has a cell phone does not have a smartphone, which means it is impossible for that 11%, and that number goes way higher once you look at different demographics. 29% of senior citizens don't have a smartphone, which means that if you do business, health insurance company, senior citizens, big part of their business, 29% of their audience, up to 29% of their audience can't do anything but SMS.
Right.
And I've heard the argument, oh, but senior citizens don't use MFA. That's not true. Yes, many senior citizens don't use MFA, but Facebook is pushing them to.
Well, my wife's grandmother is, I think she's 82, 83, somewhere in that range. One of the most technical older adults that I know. She does a great job with that kind of stuff. But I will say that she still leans towards non-technical alternatives when possible, right? Like, so she contributes to our kids' college savings accounts. And there is an online form where she can go fill out the information, click send, and be done. But she prefers to print off the tickets, mail in a check, and go that route instead. So I think there's some vagueness there of, while 20-something% of people in that generation may not have a smartphone, I don't know that all of them are necessarily using services that need the MFA either. Is that fair?
Well, no, I won't agree, because I'll tell you that most of those people have email. Most of those people have a bank account. Even if they're not doing online banking is available for their account.
The service is available for their account. That's true. That's a good point. Right. People don't think about that.
And again, I'm not saying, oh man, we got to protect the old people. I mean, we do. We have to protect everybody. But let's forget old people, right? Somewhere between 14 and 19% of people that make less than $50,000 a year don't have a smartphone.
Yeah.
And you say, oh, but Kevin, what do we care about people who make less than $50,000 a year? I care, right? Like
yeah. Well,
There's all these demographics. The question becomes, what is your audience?
What is your audience? Yeah.
Who is your customer? Who is your client? Who is your thing? That's why I don't think it's fair to say blanketly, we can get rid of SMS.
Yeah.
Because you're immediately removing a large portion of your, it's relatively large portion of your audience.
Yeah. I think when you get outside the US, that number goes up. I know I've been to Guatemala a bunch of times, and I've got some friends that there's a small community in Guatemala called Santa Maria de Jesus. Shout out to anybody from Santa Maria that's listening. I'm not sure very many people have internet there, so I'm guessing that's a 0. But what's funny is you will see these women who are basically Mayans. I mean, they literally have spent 10, 20, 30 generations on this volcano, have never left. They will be carrying these massive fruit baskets up an incredible incline with a flip phone on their ear.
Yeah.
Right. Because they can get free calls. The cell phone provider allows free calls in. They have to pay to make calls out. And it's a few Q. It's a quetzales. It's a very small, very, very cheap. But yeah, you're right. They are not going to have a smartphone where they can, run an MFA app or anything like that. The one of the frustrations I've had, I spoke at a banking conference last fall. And when I mentioned, hey, SMS should not be your default, there should be other options. Like literally the majority of the audience looked at me and said, what are you talking about? What's going on? We just got SMS. Like, what other options do we have? Is there anything else that we can put out there? All right. Welcome back from that commercial break. No, I think we had a little bit of a disruption there. But so Kevin, here's the thing I struggle with. What advice do we give to people when folks say like, hey, we just got MFA with SMS. We finally got that pushed through. Business accepted it. And now you're telling me that we got to have something different or that's not good enough. What do we do now? How do we recommend that people improve the situation?
I think that answer was exactly what you just said. Yes, it's not good enough. Not only offering SMS in 2022 is not good enough anymore. Look, guess what? TLS 1.7 is the only required version of TLS that's allowed. And I know people are going to be like, wait a minute, Kevin, I don't remember that version. I know, I made it up. But look, time goes on. I think it's awful that you just got SMS MFA in 2022. And I will agree that many organizations still don't have that. It's not good enough. Continue to improve. It's that simple. And We're not saying throw out the baby with the bathwater. What we're saying is keep making sure the bathwater is warm.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, it's a good idea. Keep peeing in the water. That's what I heard.
Nope, that's not what I said. I did not say pee in the water.
It's been a long time since you've had a baby.
No, I'm just saying I shouldn't be peeing in the water. I'm
that's
aware
fair.
what babies do.
Good point. I can see how that's where you took that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's reasonable to say, hey, MF or SMS needs to be an option for some portion. Yeah. And maybe it doesn't, right? Like there are sections of your audience where you can probably say, nope, SMS is not an option. If you need a token, we're going to send you a token or whatever, and they'll figure it out. That is a reasonable consideration for some audiences. I think my recommendation would be don't allow SMS by default.
Yeah.
Right. If there is a method for, hey, I want to use SMS or I have to use SMS. Okay, great. There's a process where I can request that and I can have it enabled. Maybe you have the option on your website, but it's grayed out and disabled by default. So people know, hey, what's this? How do I get this? And there's a customer service number where they can call in and, provide some justification for why I need that or something. But yeah, I think we have to move to the place where, using one of the other alternatives is the way to go. Cool. Well, Kevin, it's been great. One thing that I noticed is that we have gotten a lot of downloads when we go look at the statistics in Libsyn. Like I've been really impressed with how many people are downloading this. And I know my mom is only responsible for like half of those. So I don't know who else is downloading it. I would love to see reviews. I know that that's a big thing for podcasts. They get popular when people review them on the different platforms. So whatever platform it is that you're listening to this on, if you could take like 10 seconds and leave us a review and let us know, how we're doing. Give us some advice, good, bad, whatever. Talk about how handsome I am and how witty Kevin is, or vice versa.
I don't think anybody's going to say I'm witty or handsome.
That's fair enough. All right. Kevin is not handsome or witty. I'm looking forward to that review right there. But no, that would really help us spread the word. And, honestly, the biggest thing you could do if you get any value out of this, tell your friends, let them know. So, Kevin, I will talk to you in 2 weeks.
I got to book my flights.
Oh, where are we going? B-sides, that's more than 2 weeks out.
Oh,
B-sides,
yeah.
okay? B-sides, okay. Yeah, that's it's 1 month out. We will be live. Maybe we'll record live that week. We'll see how that works out.
Where are we going to be in 2 weeks?
I don't know. Well, we're going to record this again. We record every 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah. Damn. But wait a minute. Where are we going?
Yeah, free plug. I'm one of the organizers for B-Sides Oklahoma. And April 8th, we'd love to have you. bsidesok.com. Check us out. Kevin will be there. Bill will be there. Aaron will be there. Eric will be there. That's a pretty significant part of our team all coming to the great state of Oklahoma. So hopefully we'll see a bunch of y'all.